All right. Hi, and welcome to the Unit 3 weekly overview video. This one is dedicated primarily to writing negative messages because I've often found that students don't really fully engage with all the materials available to you between the textbook, Chapter 10 by Kitty Locker, extra posts that I make, guidance, questions. We should be discussing this in the classroom, as well as looking at the samples. So I kind of wanted to walk you through the best approach. And this may fly in the face of some common sense that many of you have. Many of the Park students are currently serving military or military veterans. And in the military, it's a completely different corporate culture. You're accustomed to receiving orders and just following the orders. It doesn't mean that there isn't dialogue back and forth between superiors and those serving underneath them, but it's a different command structure. It's a different sort of sense of how things operate. Outside of the military, things are different. And this assignment specifically has to do with Park University and how they would interact with their students and how they would write messages. Of course, when I start a video, someone goes and starts mowing the lawn, you know, like right next door. So that's that's distracting me. Sorry. You know, so I wanted to show you some things here and sort of talk about, you know, what we could learn from the last assignment. And then how to think about this current assignment that we're about to embark on. And so I have a zillion things open here, and I can do this cool sharing the screen thing. I love it. And so this Zoom video will be loaded to YouTube, and I'll try to keep it relatively short compared to last week. So the week 2 assignment in positive messages was more than just a positive message that informs an audience on a particular issue. We had to think of a variety of things, and I actually forgot one part here that I should add, which is persuasion. That in a sense, this is not just an assignment in which you give people information, but you're trying to persuade them to take advantage of a program. So we really should have read the persuasion chapter at the same time as we were doing the positive message chapter. But we wanted to think about issues of design, and of course visuals were very important in the week 2 assignment. You should have used at least one visual. Using several visuals would have been just, you know, an even better strategy. And moving them around the page, you know, sort of guiding the reader's eye and making the whole document scannable. Whether we want to use a lot of visuals in this particular document for week 3 or not is something to think about. If you look at the samples, I don't think anyone has used visuals outside of the letterhead and the logo. So, you know, that's an issue. I noticed there was a question in the classroom from a student that I didn't get a chance to respond to, but it was a question about whether or not the document should be short. That to make a document more scannable and easy to digest in a quick skimming, that would be easier if the document is short. And of course that's true. But there's this misperception that all business documents have to be as brief and you know, the definition of a business document is that it's very brief. We have these principles for business communication as outlined by Kitty Locker. It's got to be clear, complete, correct. It's got to save the reader's time, but also build goodwill. It's got to do all of those things together and serve the purposes of the audience, of communicating the message to the audience in the right way. This doesn't mean that it should be super, super brief. In fact, in some situations, it needs to be longer than you may think traditionally it should be. When we get to resumes, we're really going to confront this issue because there's still a lot of disagreement out there in the world about resume length. It was always 1 page. But in the modern world, professionals that have done a lot of different things, even for one company, can't get everything that they've done on a single-page resume. They've had to go to 2 and sometimes 3 pages. Curricula vitae are often 8 to 10 to 12 pages in length. And so these common conceptions of length are not necessarily based on reality. Just like all stereotypes, they're stereotypes, right? So those are issues that I want us to keep in mind as we move into the assignment for this week. So these are the things I want to talk about as as I detail this week's assignment. Got to have a logo and a letterhead for Park University. And so we'll look at that. And I don't know if the two samples I selected show that, but a lot of my samples show that. The companies or the creators of the messages that I perceive that we embody here in this course have an upbeat, positive tone, particularly for this assignment in which you are Park University. You're writing on behalf of Park University. So you want to inspire brand loyalty. It's what I call rah-rah. You know, it's like being at a college football game. You know, you want to rah-rah-rah the team. And so that requires a particular kind of upbeat, positive style. We want to, we're giving Meg some bad news, but we can do it in a way that is entirely 100% positive, actually. So the best organization for this message is the indirect approach. You should start with a buffer and be super positive. We'll look at a couple of samples of this to emphasize this point and what we can do. Can you refuse Meg without outright refusing? Without writing, we have to refuse you, or unfortunately, we have to, you know, like, can you do it completely without negative language? What kind of help can we offer Meg? And then can we close strong? Now, because of the way Zoom works, this is kind of funky. I have to stop sharing. I have to come back here, hi. And I have to share again, but I have to share a different thing, you know, because it's very strange the way Zoom works, right? So, but that's how it works, and so we'll go with it. And I'm not even going to make this review slideshow because I'm really only going to show you just a couple of these slides, right? So what we want is the indirect approach. You start with a buffer, you give reasons, you give the bad news, but I'm going to show you how to give the bad news without actually writing the refusal in an obvious way. In fact, you can refuse Meg without actually refusing her, and then a positive close, right? So with these things, you know, we think about a buffer. Now this is from a different textbook than our textbook because turns out I don't have PowerPoints for Locker. So you look at Locker, I think what she writes about is a lot better where buffer is concerned. But these are not necessarily terrible ideas, although I don't like neutral here at all. But sincere, relevant, not misleading, I like. Respectful, succinct, assertive, brief. I don't know about assertive, that sounds sort of too aggressive. But those are all good bits of advice, right? So let's look at some samples and see how this kind of looks when we're putting this document together. So see, I gotta do funky things here. And I should limit the amount of things I have open, actually. So here's one sample, right? This is sample, I think this is sample 11. Yeah, it is. Sorry, okay. Let's hope I didn't mess anything up. So notice it's got the Park logo and letterhead in the top. It's got good letter format, and it's got a buffer. It's always a pleasure to hear from students. Your goal in building this project is really cool. And it doesn't use that exact language. And then, hey, your design has been approved. You know, it's all very positive so far, right? And kind of talks about, you know, the process and the commitment of Park University to assisting students, this kind of stuff. And then it just says, this is how we use the money. This is where the money goes. Talks about these scholarships a little bit. And this person, I'm always encouraging students to try to expand the scholarship thing a little bit. You know, like name a couple of cases, you know, like this student had a full ride scholarship, or, you know, maybe not by name, but the type of student, you know, like a little bit more of that rah-rah kind of stuff, you know, or even what if there's scholarships that could be awarded mid-program? Maybe Meg could get one of these scholarships. So, you know, there's a lot of encouragement there, right? And then sort of an understanding, while we understand the hardships you face as a student, we must maintain our licensing and royalty fees to ensure impartiality. You know, so basically they're saying we got to have the money without saying, hey, we got to have the money, right? And you know, so it's a very soft refusal, right? And then it goes right from there into here's all these ways that you can get the money you need, and give real specific help, you know, like, you know, you can find these people at these meetings right here, or you'll give contact information. Another thing that I don't think anybody has done in my samples, but I'd love to see somebody do, is talk about specific cases. So-and-so wanted to do these t-shirts, and so we sent them to get help here, and they found their funding this way. And, you know, these are these t-shirts. They're for sale in the bookstore right now. In fact, this might be a reason to put some additional graphics in here in which you would, you know, show a couple of successful t-shirts, right? And talk about those projects a little bit to give her some help. So this is not your standard business communication letter. It's a little bit more robust because it's giving Meg help, and encouraging her, you know, to pursue this project, right? And that has a good ending. And this is a real short ending, but, you know, you want rah, rah. This could have added a couple of sentences perhaps, but we're already at 500 words. You know, that's a pretty, you know, standard length for this. It's a pretty good length, right? So here's another example. Now, this one's a little weaker in some ways because it doesn't have letter format. It's got the logo, but doesn't have letterhead with the address and everything. It's got a subject line. This is a letter. You don't have a subject line in a letter. So it's got these flaws, right? But I liked the way it started. You know, Park University is in fact the #1 alma mater. Could have been written a little differently, but I like this #1 rah-rah. It's very rah-rah, right? And you got to think Meg is a future, you know, alumnus. You know, she may donate money, you know, so we don't want to upset her. And it's the same sort of thing. You know, this person, I felt I personally needed to respond to your change of policy request. And again, explains how the money is used, explains how the money is used. And then, you know, it just pretty much lets her know that she's got to pay the money without saying, hey, you got to pay the money. You know, it's pretty obvious, and lots of positives. We're happy to help, you know, and then, you know, a second address here, but, you know, lots of praise for Meg, right? And this, you know, had this chunk here in terms of, you know, the reasoning. I don't like this language, even with declining your proposal. You should avoid any kind of negative language like that. You can avoid that. And that's why I'd really like to talk about some of these samples a little bit more in the classroom. They're not all perfect. I say them for various reasons. There's always a couple of good things about them, but as you can see, this one's more flawed than the last one we looked at, right? But one thing I liked was the help given her down here with the links. You know, that was very nice. But this is 640 words. This might actually be a little too long. Gives you ideas about Kickstarter. That's a great idea. So, you know, it's got some good things, but it's not necessarily 100% perfect, right? But I hope that you have taken in what we really need to do here. You know, you got to think about this tone, think about you attitude, you know, focus on Meg, not so much on you, the writer, though a little bit with that. You know, I take this opportunity to personally write to you as is important for some reason. You know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, but positive language, maybe don't refuse her at all, but explain why. You know, she has to pay the money, give her ways to go find the money, maybe give her lots more examples of success that other people have had. I would like to get some new samples that do some things that are different. So I hope you watch this video, and then you're going to come into the classroom and ask questions so we can discuss this as a class, and everybody can benefit from a good dialogue to generate really great letters. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you around the classroom. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Have a great week 3.